same way. Now, there's some other legal issues in that case. The next most prominent one being the Dormant Commerce Clause, and I'm not going to talk much about the Dormant Commerce Clause, but I'll tell you this about commerce. The United States Constitution protects the people of this country from state to state in allowing commerce to happen. Railroads go across state lines. Boats go down navigable streams across state lines. Folks can sell pecans from orchards in Rogers County, in Kansas, or Missouri. The oil in my car probably came from Pennsylvania. We love commerce. We love to go across state lines to sell our goods or to buy our goods. And so one of the arguments in this case is not that this is a Commerce Clause issue, but they call it the dormant, the unspoken Commerce Clause. But it's a serious argument. Let me tell you, it's a serious argument. It's one of their two biggies. The Oklahomans for Responsible Water Policy asked a young man named Jason Ahmet, a young woman who is living in Chickasaw country now, Chickasaw Nation, Christina Phillips, and me to write a brief on behalf of the folks of Southeast Oklahoma who would be impacted by an adverse ruling. I must tell you that when the case was filed, and I think it was filed first in 2007, you can believe these things last that long, but it was only about a year ago that the federal court turned down the Tarrant County lawsuit and said you cannot prevail on the legal issues you've raised that I just discussed. Tarrant County Regional Water District appealed that to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in Denver. And the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals heard oral arguments, meaning everybody who had a dog in the fight got to stand before a panel of 3 judges in Denver and make their arguments. And the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the Oklahoma City federal court ruling that Texas cannot prevail. I was ready, well, I don't smoke cigars or drink whiskey, but I was ready to do both, thinking we had won. Because the Supreme Court of the United States takes maybe one of every 200 or 300 or 400 cases that are decided by the circuit courts. It's rare, but you would believe it. They can only do a few hundred a year. And there are thousands of cases tried in the federal courts around the country. And so I was ready to claim victory. And then the pesky Solicitor General of the United States was asked by the Supreme Court of the United States, what do you think we ought to do? Do you think we ought to take this case or not? And the Solicitor General said, well, there's some important legal issues, so yeah, it'd be good if you'd take it. And of course they did. So now the Supreme Court of the United States has that case. Tarrant County has filed their brief. The state of Oklahoma filed our brief. It's brief, but that's really our brief. And then others who wanted their 2 bits to be heard were able to file friend of the court briefs. Now, friend of the court briefs are not always accepted by the courts because often it's a repeat of what another party is arguing. And the court doesn't want to hear 10 people say the same thing, so they just say, no, we're not going to hear those. In this case, the Supreme Court, as far as I can tell, accepted every amicus curiae brief, every friend of the court brief that was submitted. And we felt it was important for the water, those interested in the water of Southeast Oklahoma to file a friend of the court brief. And we did that. I was privileged to sign that brief on behalf of Oklahomans for Responsible Water Policy. And we submitted it, but we did not say we're going to echo what the state of Oklahoma said. Because the state of Oklahoma was arguing the technical arguments about the Red River Compact. They were arguing why the Dormant Commerce Clause doesn't apply. Let me tell you what we argued. We argued that water is not a commodity. Water is not a bushel of apples. It's not a barrel of oil. Water is communities. Water is the essence of life. And so our brief was about people, about the folks in southeast Oklahoma, but really folks all over the state of Oklahoma. And you know that. I don't have to tell you that water, now, Mr. Chairman, I think you mentioned that water was being sold, or that you can now go buy water by the jug, and you have one there, Penny, that you did. Boone Pickens said one day a barrel of water is going to be worth more than a barrel of oil. Well, if you poured enough of those into a barrel, it may be worth over 90 bucks, by the way. It may already be there. But what we know is oil does not cause us or enable us to live. And water does. And not only does it give us life, but what we've argued is that there are multiple uses for water. Certainly drinking water is the paramount use for water. Ed, I didn't make you mad, did I?
No, you're right.
One time, I was speaking to a civic group, and one of the members of the group sat over by the door. And so I asked my host, who is that? And why is he sitting over by the door? And he says, well, you know, we leave at 1. We're here from 12 to 1, but he has to be back at work at about 1:15. So he leaves early every day. So I said, write his name down for me. So he wrote his name down for me and gave it to me. And sure enough, I was right in the middle of my speech, and he gets up to walk out. So I said, Charlie, you get back in here. You're no better than the rest of them. And he turned around and said, frankly, I've enjoyed all I can stand. And I thought maybe that's where I was at that time. But our argument was that water's not a commodity. We drink it, but down here we do more. I met with the board of Save Our Water tonight and loved every minute of it. We had a great visit before your meeting started. And I looked out across the water, and I saw the pontoon boats. And as I came through town, I saw the inner tubes in the windows and realized how much this community depends on Lake Eufaula for your well-being. I read somewhere the other day that at Broken Bow Reservoir, there are 600 cabins. Is that right, Penny?
More than 600 cabins.
More than 600 cabins. You know, I've been on Lake Texoma fishing for stripers. I've been on this lake fishing for whatever I can get. But when I was on Texoma, I had a guide take me out. I know that many of those in this community and the communities across eastern Oklahoma generally and southeast Oklahoma specifically depend upon the recreational presence of water. Oklahomans for Responsible Water Policy has over 14,000 members. Not bad for a group that started just a couple of years ago. What's remarkable to me is not that, because there ought to be 50,000 members who care about water enough to sign a piece of paper and that you don't have to pay dues to join. You just sign your name. what is remarkable, among the 14,000 who are members, there's at least one person from every zip code in the state of Oklahoma. Now think about it. The people who get those inner tubes, or who rent the pontoon boats, or who rent the hotel room, not far from here, where Gail and I stay, they depend not on people in this community to get in the boats. They depend on folks from Oklahoma City and Norman and Edmond and from places north. Recreation is a major part of not just the folks who have the water, but the folks who come here to use the water. And we've tried to emphasize that. Now, without being demeaning, I want you to know that I remind folks that the economic difference between family incomes in Choctaw County or LaFleur County is quite different than the average incomes in Nichols Hills, in Oklahoma City, or in Edmond, or in Norman. The way we lift ourselves up by our bootstraps is by using our resources to keep us alive and well and growing. And the great gift that God gave you was water. You need to use it. Obviously, you need to use it wisely. I can tell you that in the newspaper 10 days ago, Marcia Slaughter, who is the executive director of the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust, said we need to start imposing conservation practices in Oklahoma City. And she went on to say that, in her opinion, 30% of the water that was used in Oklahoma City was used on the outdoor. Now, I think she's on the low side of the 30%. A mutual friend of mine and Penny's took pictures of the Comanche River last summer, maybe a year ago.
I took the pictures of the river and he went to Oklahoma City.
Okay, you took the picture of the Comanche. Don came to Oklahoma City. There was more water running down the gutter in one of the housing additions than was running down the Comanche River. Water that had been used for the lawn, I'm sure, but for the driveway, for the side of the house, and it was going away, going into the sewer drains, and going away. And no way to capture it and reuse it. They have no way to do that. Well, what we're talking about, we meaning you and me, and folks that are representing us in the legislature and in the United States Congress, what we're talking about is what is the smart way to use water. Why don't we have conservation programs in Oklahoma City? Swimming pools are full of water. The driveways are wet most of the time. And they want your water. Penny and I were together in Canton, Oklahoma 2 weeks ago. Was it 2 or 3?
28.
28th of March. And there were places you could walk across Canton Lake. And Canton is northwest of Oklahoma City. Their lake, until a few weeks before, had been low, but pretty full. It was gone in a matter of a couple of weeks. Lake Hefner in Oklahoma City, which was kind of low 2 weeks earlier, took the Canton Lake water. Now, I'm not complaining, nor were they complaining, because Oklahoma City had a right to take that water that dated back decades and decades. The complaint was, our boats are on dry land at Canton Lake so that the millionaires could float their boats at Lake Hefner. Now, I don't know if that was an overstatement, but it was a statement. We've got to work together on this. If you think that Southeast Oklahoma is the only place with a problem, go to Canton. if Canton thinks they're the only place that has a problem, they need to go down to Jackson County, which hadn't been able to irrigate for 2 years. And people are still drinking chippy water out of their wells. We're all in this together. And you need to join hands. You who love this lake need to join hands with the folks at Canton, or the folks down at Lake Altus, the Liggard Altus Lake, and Broken Bow, and Texoma, and Grant, because this is a gift that we've received. None of us made that water. God gave us that water. And we've got to be good stewards, but we've got to work together. Frankly, we have made great progress in the legislature, though we're outnumbered, because of these guys that I've bragged on tonight. They have fought the fight, and they've been doing battle for you and for others across southeast Oklahoma, and actually across the state. I know Brian Reniger worked hard, and Ed, you've been involved with the Water Resources Board allocation, the new geographic distribution. Larry, I'm sure you're involved. I know Jerry Ellis has been involved, and others in this area. And it's a fair thing to do. Penny, how long has it been since Southeast Oklahoma had a member of the Oklahoma Water Resources Board?
I don't think they ever have.
Yeah. Does that make any sense to you that the part of Oklahoma that has the most water per capita has nobody on the Water Resources Board? That's why we borrow Ed 5 when we can, or others when we can, because we have no one to speak for us down here. Well, I'm out of time and you're out of patience, but I want you to know how much I care about this community and this area, how much I love the water, how much I love fishing here. And Gail and I can no longer get out on the ground and picnic off a sheet, but we can still get the picnic tables and eat our fair share. We love this country. And I've been blessed by being a part of this battle for these years, and maybe for many years, but certainly the last few years. And I thank you for being here tonight. I know there were other things you could be doing, and this is important that you be here. And it's important that you talk to your neighbors, and that you go shake the hand of your legislator and say thank you for helping us keep what we got. And if you think Lake Eufaula is immune from Texas or someone else dipping their toes in your water, you got another thing coming. You are not immune. So it's time to remember it. Thanks for having me here.